to you about this before. Like, I have a little bit of like nerves about it because, of course, when we started Garden Valley Pipe Band in 2015, a lot of players from White Peaks started playing with Garden Valley, and I can't help but, especially now after a few years of trying to run a pipe band and having folks go to play with other bands, I have some. What is it? Is it guilt? Is it sadness? I'm not sure what exactly, but I don't doubt at all that that was an effect that that was felt in White Peaks.
Yeah, it's always sad to see people go, but I always hope that things work out good for them wherever they're headed.
That's very kind of you, and you probably have seen this quite a bit, having done this for a while. So I wonder if I could get kind of a chronological biography from you. You know, like where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? When did you first encounter bagpipes? And I don't know, maybe just start from there and let's see where it takes us.
Hmm. Well, I grew up probably most of my childhood in Salt Lake, and then I moved to Spanish Fork for a few years, and then I've been in Payson. And Payson Junior High and high school had a bagpipe band here that was run by Jerry Chatwin. And a friend of mine, John Paul Hurst, and I, well, actually, originally I signed up for the pipe class, and the counselor told me that it was only for girls, so I dropped
What?
it. Yeah,
How's that?
that's what they thought, I guess. So I dropped. They strongly encouraged me, and I dropped the class. And when I was a kid growing up, I had a friend from Scotland. He had a set of toy bagpipes that I remember.
Yeah.
Um, but
My mind's a
uh,
little bit blown though. Like people, especially right now, there's some talk around in the community about sort of how it's a very like male dominant sort of. I was about to say sport, not sport, but you know like competitive piping, right? There's a lot of men and not as many women and stuff. Do you remember there being like an especially high ratio of women in or girls rather in the in the high school program at the time?
oh, there were, yeah, probably mostly girls in the high school program at that time.
That is interesting because I have thought before like I hear people talk about that and I think it's true on a large scale, but it does seem like locally, maybe just here in Utah County, there are a lot of women in piping and drumming.
Yeah, it's something I've ran into from time to time. My bands have traditionally, I guess, had. It's not so uncommon now, but had a lot more women than other bands that we ran into.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Garden
and
Valley has actually spent a decent amount of its time where women outnumber men
yeah, for me, it's never really been an issue because I don't really care. I
because
mean,
you're
as
a cool
long
guy.
if you can play bagpipes, hey, great, let's
Yeah.
do it. But we, there's been a few times where we've had some kickback because of that at places we've been, but
Wow, that's so interesting.
it's not so much the case anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the time it was mostly girls in Payson. There were a few guys.
But your counselor was like, "That's for girls. Don't do it."
Yeah, so I dropped it. I
How
dropped the
funny.
class, and
Huh.
then my friend John Paul Hurst and I we dared each other to take the class. So
Oh, really?
on a dare, uh, I dropped my gym class at the time and signed back up with my friend, and
Well, kudos to
been
you
playing
because
ever
like if
since.
I could think of anything that would be more like sort of emblematic of like stereotypical gender norms and stuff, it would be in this case for you to drop your gym class, your masculine manly gym class to go and take the apparently girls piping class. So kudos to you, Don, for going for it.
Well, I don't. The girl thing, I guess, wasn't ever a big issue for me. I
Yeah.
was interested in bagpipes, and it turns out later I've got a family history of it, but I didn't know that at the time.
Mm. Well, and what maybe it comes up later in the story. So if you'd rather put it off, feel free to. But what is that family history? Because I'm vaguely aware that certainly your parents were at least supportive. Because I know that like I know your mom made you one of those cool raincoats and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
that sort of the generation immediately preceding yours, they weren't pipers. Is it further back? You had some family members that played pipes.
It was, yeah. My dad tolerated bagpipes.
Oh yeah,
He's a pretty good sport about it.
yeah.
My mom liked him. Um, yeah, I got. My mom was really into genealogy. She's the one that
Hey,
shared the story with me.
whose mom isn't, right?
Right. But there's a journal entry of one of my ancestors, and his wife joined the LDS Church, and she wanted to come to America, and he didn't want to come to America, and they were both very stubborn people, and so she packed up everybody and chartered a boat to America. I believe that she felt like he would follow if she went first,
And were they coming from Scotland?
yeah.
So does this play perfectly into the stereotype of Scottish people being somewhat, should I say, belligerent? Like certainly stubborn, you know?
I don't know. It runs in my family. I can vouch for that part. But yeah, her last journal entry of Scotland is she can see him on the shore playing.
Really?
So yeah, and it's an interesting thing.
That just kind of gave me goosebumps. I mean, that's kind of beautiful and kind of sad and interesting, you know? That's
Yeah, she wound up raising her family by herself over here in America.
wow.
But, and that was pretty much the end of the piping in the line. I mean, nobody picked it up after that. And
But I feel like I could imagine this being almost cinematographic. Is that the word? This could be a beautiful like full circle thing where like the family is like in a way kind of broken, you know, generations ago, and he's playing pipes on the shore as she sails away, and then somehow it comes full circle with you, you know, sort of unknowingly stumbling into piping, you know, generations later on the other continent, you know.
yeah,
Shoot.
just felt drawn to it. And
Hmm.
it's a weird thing, and I don't know how to put it in words, but some tunes I run across, I pick them up super fast, and it's not like I'm learning them, it's more like I'm remembering them. So
Hmm.
I don't know what that's all about, but kind of interesting.
That is interesting. You know, and I don't mean to derail your story, but it does make me wonder. Like, so I never participated. Like, people, especially here in our local niche, are probably aware of the Nauvoo pageant over in Nauvoo, Illinois, that the Mormon Church puts on that
Oh.
includes bagpipes. And I've never participated in it. I don't really understand how bagpipes got into that, you know. But I wonder. I know that you've participated in it. Did that have was that part of the motivation that there's like this sort of cross-generational sort of connection of bagpipes, and is that kind of the theme that's happening there in Nauvoo as well?
Yeah, the pageant itself is actually written. The main character that the pageant follows through, where you get all the church history through the story, is from Scotland,
Mm.
and his family comes from Scotland, and so there's this main character that's Scottish that goes through the whole thing. They actually have the British pageant out there now.
Okay. So right when it cut out, you were saying they actually have the British pageant there now.
Yeah, it's a pageant that they originally started in Great Britain, and it actually tells the prequel of the Nauvoo pageant, and it was pretty well received. And they actually present that one in Nauvoo now too, so you can see the British pageant one night and then the Nauvoo pageant the next night. So you kind of get the prequels part of it, and then the
Mm.
Nauvoo pageant itself. It's really good, and it's got bagpipers, so what's not to like, right?
Right. It's got to be good.
Yep.
Awesome. So sorry for the sidetrack. Rewind me now. You decide to sign up for the class. Now, I know that later on in life you taught a chanter class, and but at the time, was it that the high school program, you know, got you from chanter all the way up to pipes, or did you have to find private instruction until you were ready for pipes?
The high school class got you from chanter all the way up to pipes. I got different private instruction along the way, and then I later, um, studied with even more people after that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, high school definitely got me up and going. The pipe band used to be part of the marching band at the time, so
Mm-hmm.
we had to do field shows and that type of thing. So we got to do a lot of playing. It was a good experience.
So from high school, did you love math in high school? Was that like you always wanted to work in math and teach math, or was that something that came up later, kind of, you know, unexpectedly?
I hated math.
Oh, did you?
If if you talk to my friends that knew me in high school, they're flabbergasted that I became a math teacher. Hate's probably too nice of a word about how I felt
Really?
about
So,
math.
well, how did that happen? That's fascinating.
Well, life has a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Yeah.
I went down to college and I was pursuing my degree, and which involved a lot of math classes, and I would spend hours and hours and hours working on it, trying to figure it out. One day it clicked, and I started to understand it, and the pieces started to come together. And they had me teaching at the university I was attending at the time, and um, found out that I had a perspective that was helpful for teaching, and yeah, kind of got into that. I never intended to become a teacher or particularly a math teacher. I kind of laugh at my students when they say, "Oh, I'm never going to use this stuff," because I was them. So, and got to be careful what you say, I guess.
Yeah, but it makes so much sense that if you had to struggle through it, if it wasn't intuitive for you, then you would have a perspective that would be very helpful as an instructor, as a teacher, you know?
Well, I hope so. If I can spare some of the kids the frustrations I went through, then it's a win for me.
So do you feel like now at this point you have like a love for mathematics in general? Like, do you feel like maybe the struggle and then it finally clicking led to maybe even a deeper appreciation for mathematics than you would have had if you hadn't had to struggle first?
Oh, for sure.
Mm.
Definitely, I see it from a different perspective. People think that because I teach math, I'm, you know, that type of brain person, and I'm actually not. I'm kind of a convert. So I'm more of a work with your hands, um, I guess, play bagpipes,
Yeah.
and than a math personality. But I think, it's something I've had to learn, and hopefully I've integrated the two pretty well by now.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to see it from a point of view of being able to understand it, it brings you a lot of appreciation to have worked hard at something and gained a mastery of that. And sharing that, kind of makes the struggle more worthwhile in my mind.
Yeah, I
So,
can relate to the struggle. I always had a really hard time with math. In fact, when I went to college, it was several years after high school, after I'd got married, that I decided I'd try doing some college courses. And I had took a placement test, for math and English and stuff. And my placement test put me in a math class. It was something like math 1001 remedial pre-junior high pre-algebra. Like it was just the most I had to take like 6 math classes before I got to a college level math class. Like it was a long struggle to get my math
mm-hmm.
credit.
Oh yeah.
And I even remember like there was one night I was up really late. My wife was always trying to help me get through my homework.
Mm-hmm.
And I was up really late working on my math homework because I was working full time at the time. We'd had our first kid and stuff, so I would just stay up late to try to do my homework. And I fell asleep while working out one of these long, I don't remember what kind of math it was. It was one of these things where it's like, here's one piece of it, now you figure out the missing piece. And so I had like this long trail of like, well, if this is this, then that's that, kind of working stuff down. So this long trail of numbers all down this paper. And I fell asleep, and when I woke up, I looked at the paper to see if I'd got the answer, and at the bottom, it just said, X equals bad day. And I didn't remember writing it. I think my subconscious self had just finished it and gone to sleep.
Yeah, that's funny. I spent a lot of hours doing that in college. I
Mm.
pretty much had to teach myself a lot of this stuff just from trial and error. They didn't quite have the support in college that they do now. So I'm glad to have seen that change. But yeah, there were some nights I got like an hour of sleep, and I remember studying for a calculus final, and I was up late, and I had a similar experience to yours where I was writing, and I felt like I blinked my eyes and opened my eyes, and the time for the final was I only had 10 minutes left.
Oh no.
And right in the middle of the equation, there's a line, and it just trailed off down to the bottom of the page. So I fell asleep while I was writing, I guess.
Oh
So.
man.
But anyway, it's funny now that I look back at it. It wasn't so great at the time.
Right, of course, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a struggle. But
No, you
I
you
guess
also Oh, go ahead.
I guess it's the if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does make sense that this would lend itself to you have maybe we'd even call it like an outsider perspective on
Mm-hmm.
mathematics, like you've had to work through it. And it occurs to me, like maybe this is a connection that doesn't deserve to be made. I'm just, so maybe I'm grasping at straws here, but it does occur to me that, and I don't know to what degree this is just my perspective, but like I wasn't aware of things before, but it feels kind of like right now with the Piper's Dojo and a lot of like YouTube videos and Zoom classes and stuff like that, there's like kind of an openness of sort of availability. Like you can get instruction from people like Stuart Little, either directly or recorded, by other people, a little more directly than maybe a couple decades ago. And it does make me wonder, like, sometimes it feels like bagpipes used to be more of like a black magic that you had to find, the wizard who had the secrets,
Mm-hmm.
and then ask them to do their magic. Whereas now more of the knowledge is maybe more readily available for the masses, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. And I wonder if for you learning to play pipes was maybe somewhat similar to figuring out math. Like, did you kind of have to do a lot of trial and error because you didn't have somebody to say, here's how you mandrel a reed? Maybe you just had to break a lot of reeds, before you could figure stuff out.
I did do a lot of that, and you're very much on the head. It was very kind of a lot of wives' tales were
Mm,
perpetuated over the years, and the instruction is so available now. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, you can pretty much learn about anything you want to learn about. But yeah, I did break a lot of reeds, and I just did a lot of trial and error for a lot of the things that I know. I've had good people. David Barkley really um, got a lot of people on their feet and got them playing, and he gave me a good foundation and a good start, and as he has for a lot of people.
and the Barclays, they're the family dynasty that's been running the Utah pipe band, right?
They are, yes, yeah, they've been playing bagpipes for a long time.
Yeah. What are they, like the third generation of leadership there or something? It's pretty impressive. Or is it just
Well,
second?
they have the third generation there. The David Barkley's father um, played bagpipes in the military, but he got this is what I've heard secondhand, so take it with a grain of salt. But
Sure.
he was in a got some gas, during the war, and so he
Oh,
couldn't play pipes anymore. But
really?
he raised his sons to play the pipes,
Hmm.
and at one time the Salt Lake Scots and the Utah Pipe Band was one group, and
Right.
they were kind of the Scottish immigrant group here in Utah for a long time, and
Did they
Utah Pipe Band has kept it going for a long time.
did that same group of people have to do with establishing the Celtic Center that used to be in Salt Lake?
I believe that was the Salt Lake Scots that
Hmm.
did that.
Gotcha.
I never really got up there much, so I couldn't tell you a lot about it.
Yeah, I think it was maybe still around when I was a kid, but I also never got there, and like by the time I was more aware of it, it wasn't there anymore. So,
Hmm.
well, that's interesting. Now, when you left the high school program and went to college, did you take a set of pipes with you, or was it something you left for a bit and then came back to it?
No, I was actually recruited down there for that reason.
Mm.
So I had some scholarships for playing the bagpipes down there, and yeah, I did
Awesome.
a lot of work down there for while I was down there. Um,
What school was it?
Southern Utah University.
Oh yeah.
Yep, they used to have quite a big pipe program there.
Mm. That's awesome. So you play with the high school program, you go to college, continue working there on your piping. How was it immediately after graduation that you came back north again and joined in with, I'm guessing, the Utah Pipe Band?
Um, I worked there. They actually offered me some different jobs to work there at the university,
Mm.
but for different reasons, I wound up coming back up here right after that time, and then I quit piping for about 2 years,
Mm.
um, and just wasn't piping. And there's a little old grandma here in Payson at the time named Helen Scott that was
Yep.
really into
I know her. Or
the
knew
the
her. Know
pipe
her.
band,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, pipe band culture, and she kept calling me and asking me to teach a pipe class over at Petite Neat, and
Yeah.
I she's a woman that not to be denied.
Yeah.
And eventually she got me to agree, which was, I'll always be grateful to her for that. And that got me back into piping again. And there was a big need for a pipe band on this end of the valley at the time. And so that was one of the things I kind of, through Helen and Petite and stuff, started to build up down here.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how White Peaks came about.
Yeah, tell me about that. So I met the way that I met Helen. I was doing a youth theater group called Upstage Theater that Corinne Vance was running there at Petite Neat, which is that sort of. I mean, it's not just a museum. What is Petite Neat? It used to be a school. It's like a city center kind of thing, right? But it's also not like necessarily funded by the local government. It's more like
They
what is
call
it?
it
A
the
non.
Arts Center,
Ah, that
but
makes sense.
Yeah, it is nonprofit. A lot of people donate to it.
Right.
But it's pretty eclectic. They have dance classes taught there, and music classes, and art,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, and
and a museum, and a
I,
lot of
I,
other things.
I was doing this youth theater thing there, and Helen came and recruited me to mop the floors whenever I wasn't on the stage. And she was very specific about how they were to be mopped. She cared about that building, you know.
Oh, she very
Um,
much did. Yeah.
and so that's how I met her, and I also would look out the windows and hear White Peaks practicing on certain days. And I think I think that my earliest memory of seeing a pipe band play might have been White Peaks at Petite Neat for maybe how does White Peaks is the White Peaks Centennial Pipe Band, right?
Right.
So that's why I think it was White Peaks. How did that Centennial get inserted in the pipe band's name? Tell me about that.
We formed the band up in 1996, which was Utah's centennial year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the centennial came from.
I bet that was it. Did you play? Do you remember? Did you play something at Petite Neat, like celebrating the Centennial?
Um, Probably. We practiced at Petite Neat all the time back then.
Yeah.
So we played a lot of things at Petite Neat and all over town.
So
And so it could have been a lot of things.
yeah. So and I, let's see. I feel old, Don. I'm not saying this in order to make you feel old, but at the same time, you're a junior high teacher and you have grandkids, so I'm sure you've had these experiences plenty of times already, right? So it probably
Mm-hmm.
rolls like water off a duck's back. But my parents moved to Payson, I think in 94, 95, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember I have a very clear vision of sitting in Petite Neat with the lights low, and we were right close to the front, maybe even the front row, and there was a pipe band. And what actually it's interesting to me now that what fascinated me was the snare drummers. Like I thought, you know how they've got snares under the heads and stuff. When they would do their rolls, I could not understand how you could be hitting a drum like dot 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 and have a brrr coming out of it, you know.
Yeah.
And so I thought they must have like batteries in their sticks or something, you know, as
Well, that'd be
a little
handy.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that was the first time I encountered White Peaks and bagpipes in a really big way, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But that was then, as I grew up, I was aware of bagpipes there in Payson because of White Peaks, and more so White Peaks than the high school program. And then when I got to be, about junior high aged, that's when Zach took your chanter class, and I didn't have room for it in my schedule, so I took lessons from Heather Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
But we started learning together. So how did you end up teaching a chanter class?
I worked at the junior high, and they had chanter classes off and on there over the years. They had it pretty regularly when Jerry Chatwin was um, teaching there.
Oh, and so he would teach the chanter class himself?
He did. They'd start him at the junior high and then carry him up through junior high into high school.
Mm.
And the teacher there at the time, I don't think there was anyone teaching chanter class, or they hadn't been for a while, but I kind of, it was something that was still in memory. And I can't remember exactly how I wound up teaching it. I'm sure that I encouraged the situation.
Yeah, advocated a bit.
Yeah, and then I taught it down there for quite a few years, and it was pretty successful. We were turning out 15 to 20 pretty solid beginners every year.
Yeah.
Um, but then things changed, and it became less of a priority, and they no longer had it there at the junior high.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember in the years that I was playing with the high school pipe band, there was one year when I had to get like some kind of like a home ec credit or something, and one way to do it was to do like an internship. And the high school
Uh-huh.
and junior high are right. They just are, on either side of the football field there. And so, at the time, the junior high was doing those 7 class periods per day, but the high school was doing 4 class periods per day. And so I would come down every other day, and I'd like go grade papers for Miss Whaley, I think she was a geography teacher.
Yeah, I remember her.
And then for the other half of my time there, I would walk over to your chanter class, and basically you just tell me which exercises to take the class through, to kind of warm up at the beginning of class.
Uh-huh.
And then you'd take over, and so I just like walk them through, like scales with doublings or whatever it was.
Uh-huh.
But looking at this, I don't know how big was the group usually. I feel like it was like 30 kids. It was a big group of kids.
Yeah, it was a pretty big group of kids there. We didn't have a very high dropout rate. Most of them stuck with it. So.
Yeah. I mean, it was a well-oiled machine. You get them there, they get ready, they go up into the high school, and it was a big program. When I was there, the pipe band was big.
Yeah, it was they had a good thing going for quite a while. So it was a good
Diana's
thing.
fighting the good fight right now, keeping it alive.
She is, and it's been hard for anybody that's been up there at the high school. That's now they're trying to do it in a shorter amount of time, and that's hard to get the kids up and going,
Yeah.
before they graduate. So
Mm-hmm.
it is a challenge for sure. So
So,
my
oh,
hats
go ahead.
off to them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Now, what was it like to start White Peaks? Had you been thinking for a while, like we need a pipe band here in this area? Because you're right, there was like the one down there was you would have had the SUU kind of center for piping, and then you would have had Salt Lake, and there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
space in between and a lot of people in between. So what like when did you start thinking about it? What was the motivation? How did that happen?
Well, a lot of people didn't want to drive up to Salt Lake, and so they were just quitting,
Mm.
and that was it. There wasn't really a place. Either it was too expensive for them to drive, they didn't have the transportation, or time constraints, and so a lot of people that I taught were just winding up, graduating, and there was no place for them to go, so they just quit playing pipes, which was a shame
Yeah.
because they put so much time and effort into it, and so um, there was definitely a need here for something closer for those people to be able to continue their piping,
Yeah.
and so kind of got into it, as a result of a lot of encouraging from Helen. But yeah, I've just been kind of going with that ever since. We had a large group that had learned pipes and didn't have any place to go at the time, and so I didn't want to see them just not be able to pursue that something that they enjoyed so much. So that was kind of the tipping point for me where I finally committed to doing that. And I can say if you're thinking about starting your own pipe band, you probably should have your head examined.
So true.
It's a lot of work for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's something that Zach and I had been dreaming of since we were kids
Mm-hmm.
when we first started playing. But yeah, actually doing it, and of course, I often talk about like Zach and I starting it. That's mostly, I mean, having passed away, of course. Like I think all of our thoughts go to him in a strong way, you know. But of course,
Mm-hmm.
it was, it takes a lot of work from a lot of people to be able to make that work, and so I don't mean it all to say Zach and I as if it was just the two of us doing all that work, but it is a lot of work. My goodness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is for sure.
Now,
Yep.
did you already have connections for things like uniforms, instruments, supplies and stuff, or did you kind of have to run out there and start, shaking hands and calling people and being like, I need drums, I need kilts.
Well, I kind of already did that in Cedar City to get that group up and going. When I
Mm.
first got there, we had 5 people in the entire program, including myself, and so there was a lot of that when um, while I was working with them down there.
So you'd
So
already kind of run through these paces.
yeah, I pretty much knew. I'd made friends with Sandy St. James
Mm.
along the way, and he's quite a character. Sandy was, but very knowledgeable and just a heart of gold, and he was very much supportive and helpful to when we needed things, or he could help us or point us in the right direction. So a lot of credit goes to him.
Yeah. Now, the way that my parents found a house in Payson was that they wanted to go to the Scottish festival there to hear the pipes.
Hmm.
My understanding is that festival was already happening on an annual basis before White Peaks came into existence. Is that right?
Yeah, started in 1986. I was
Wow.
there for the first one.
You were there for the first one, really?
I was, yeah.
So, how excited were the organizers when it became apparent that they were going to have a local band come into existence?
Um, I think there was a lot of excitement for the people that knew about the group, but there are a lot of people didn't realize that there was a local group here.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, it would have been better to do more publicity, probably.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want to take away from the Payson group, so we always tried very hard to kind of avoid um, taking away their opportunities and chances to
Mm.
play and recognition. We didn't want to interfere with their recognition, and we wanted this to be something that if the kids when they graduated wanted to continue, they had a local
Right,
option
right.
where they could do that, and it was never intended to compete with that group. It was
Yeah.
I've been involved with Payson High School Pipe Band off and on since 1984. So
Mm-hmm.
I very much want to see that group succeed, and um, have tried to be available and helpful to them when I can.
That was certainly
So
my experience when I was in that program. It didn't feel to me at all like White Peaks was some sort of rivalry. It was rather like extra support and a place to go when you graduated. Like I remember, I don't remember if someone explicitly said to me or if I just had the feeling that like if you want even more instruction, if you play with the Payson High School Pipe Band, you can go to White Peaks practices and they will help you. And that's where I met, a lot of people who are my closest friends now. Yourself, I'd probably met before then, but that's where I met like Swan and Susan, and Sean, Amber and Tashina, like all these people who helped me quite a bit. It was like White Peaks was there as extra support to the Payson program.
well, that was always the goal. So I'm glad to hear that from your perspective that maybe it was successful.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah, it's a neat program. I've seen it do a lot of good for a lot of people at the high school level and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Good for self confidence and a lot of things that I think help people succeed in other areas of life. So we wanted
Yeah,
to contribute to that.
yeah. Now, I don't want to derail this entirely, but I am curious, what other sort of interests, obligations, basically, what other stuff takes up your time aside from bagpipes? What other things do you kind of spend your mental focus on and stuff like that?
Well, bagpipes took up a lot of my time because I was working with my group and people from other groups, and somebody was always needing a, something repaired or
Of course, yeah.
help with technique or something like that. But I've kind of in the last few years not haven't been quite as involved in that as I have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing a lot of working and still teach lessons and teach bagpipe classes, and I'm doing mountain biking, and uh, I have an old car I work on. And
Mm.
oh, you disappeared, but you're back. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're back. Sorry, I heard you say you have an old car you work on.
Yeah, but my main focus has been on my family and
Of
spending
course.
time with them.
Yeah, you
I have
recently got some grandkids, right?
one of them. Yeah, it
One
was a
of
lot
them,
of fun.
nice.
Yeah, he can say bagpipes now, so he's headed.
Perfect.
He's on the right track.
Was that even before he said grandpa?
Um,
or a
it may
cor-
have been. It may have
It may
been
have been. Oh,
actually.
that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
And you're in a situation where that probably doesn't bug you one bit.
yeah. No, I'm good with it.
I remember coming down to help with the junior high chanter class, and it was probably Ian who was sitting there at your, he was younger, but he'd like come, for the day or something, and he was sitting there at your desk, learning the Pumpkins Fancy, and you just
Uh-huh.
like rolling your eyes, just being like, oh man, why is he learning this tune?
He still plays it from time to time to tease me.
Yeah, just to tease you.
Yeah, it's a great song, but at the time it was so.
Okay, we're
Okay.
back. Sorry about
Yep.
that, man. Sometimes
No
this goes
worries.
so smoothly, and sometimes that just happens. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. Technology, it's great when it works, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's not always the case. So yeah.
yeah. Now
With
I've got two boys who are. I just ordered the younger of the two a practice chanter, so I'm planning to work on both of them, get them on pipes. I'm curious. So like on a personal level, like I'm kind of curious. How did it go for you to kind of have your kids learn to play pipes with you? Was it ever? Because like what I'm nervous about is like, what if I become, the taskmaster instead
uh,
of the dad, and I make it so bagpipes aren't fun for my kids. It's like another chore they have to do.
yeah, I think for me, the good thing to remember is bagpiping is your thing,
Mm.
um, and if you make it fun and they want to do it, that's great, and let them know that they're doing it because they need to feel like they're doing it because they want to do it and because they enjoy it and it's fun, and not because they feel like you want them to do it.
Yeah.
Um, and provide opportunities with them. You're going to be dad, so you can say something 100 times that'll go in one ear and out the other, but
Yeah.
a random stranger will mention it in passing and it will really sink in. So provide them opportunities to get instruction from other people.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of disappointing as a dad, but it's the way it is, and it helps to keep it fun for them.
Yeah,
Find
yeah,
ways for it to be fun for them.
yeah,
Don't stress them out about it. And I can't say I've been perfect at it over the years. Running a pipe band's a big job, but
yeah.
we had a lot of good family memories. We spent a lot of time together that we may not have done if we hadn't had something like piping we could do together. So, and I think it's brought them a lot of satisfaction in their lives. So they're at the age now where they're getting established in the world and college and stuff like that, and piping isn't as available. They don't have the time as available to pipe like they used to. But
Yeah.
I think it definitely is something they have a skill for that they may come back more to later. But
Yeah,
if
often
nothing
those
else,
seasons of life, it kind of comes and goes, doesn't it?
right. But even if they don't, they've got some great memories. So
Yeah. Well, it's like piping is something that's brought me a lot of joy, some of my closest friendships, a lot of good experiences, and so of course I want that for my kids, but I try to recognize that they can get those things in other ways as well. But
that's very true.
sort of my main thing is like if I want to spend, at least a night every week and a lot of weekends, a lot of road time and stuff doing piping stuff, I will feel less guilt if my family is with me. And if my family's with me and also participating, like actually enjoying it, not just being drug around to these things, that's even better. And so that's kind of my like selfish desire here is like, well, maybe if they could all be into it as well, then we're all having fun, not just this is dad's thing, but
Yeah.
can't control their minds, of course.
Well, I think that's great, and I think if you provide fun experiences for them, it will be. It's I for me, my family was involved in it for years and years and years, and we had a lot of fun doing it together. And I think that's why it was fun because we were doing it together,
Yeah.
and they weren't just sitting there.
Just sitting in
You
the
know,
tent waiting for you to get back.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, I highly recommend that. I think the more you can get your family involved in it,
Mm-hmm.
the more rewarding it is for everybody. And for me, I can only speak for myself, but it was a very positive thing.
Yeah. Now, you have, aside from playing multiple sets yourself, you've set up probably. Do you think you even have any hope of estimating how many sets of pipes you have set up over the years?
I quit counting a long
I
time
bet you
ago.
did. My pipes that I've been playing for going on 20 years now are a set that we got from you that you had set up. That
Right? Yeah, I used to play that set myself.
and you know what, Don? I still have the same drone reeds. All
It's
the
time
stick.
for an upgrade.
It's like I've thought that before, but at the same time, it's like as long as I'm comfortable, I'm very comfortable. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I've still got the same drone reeds. Honestly, I still have the same tape holding the tongues onto the drone reeds. Everything about them is exactly the same. I still have the same sticks and stocks, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Still have the same Ganaway hide bag. Hats off to Ganaway. Holy moly, that bag was used when I started using it, and it's still airtight.
Yeah, I can't believe that thing's still going. That's
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
I still have a set of tone enhancers that I think you actually manufactured yourself.
Yeah, I did for a while. So
and
probably.
and
Yep.
those they have saved me so many times from losing my reeds. Like I don't know what effect they've actually had on the airflow, like because honestly I've never played my pipes without them, but for
Uh-huh.
saving my reeds from going into the bag, if nothing else, they're worth it for that.
Yeah, yeah. They definitely have a useful place. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think you're playing one of the blowpipes I made too, if I recall.
That's right, I am. I kind of did a hack job of cutting the very bottom piece off so I could fit a moose valve into the stock. But yeah,
Mhm.
the blowpipe's the same. Yep. Yep, you've got your fingerprints all over not only my learning how to play, but also even my instrument, Don. You are
Well,
indispensable. I even still have the same case. Everything about my setup is like, oh, this is how Don did it.
yeah. Anyone that knows anything about me knows that I'm always pushing the envelope. So if you get your hands on a set of pipes that I played, they're probably not. They probably had a lot of little enhancements over
not
the
not
years.
stock, right?
Yeah.
So having done all of that, do you have any favorites? Like, is there a set of equipment that you'd be like, oh, this is like the gold standard. I love this.
You mean like a set of pipes, or?
Set of pipes. I don't know, blow pipes. Just kind of what kind of kit is like really, or even do you have a dream set? Do you have things that you're like, someday when I win the lottery, I'm gonna get me some of that?
I've I learned to do a lot of bagpipe repair, so I've been able to get my hands on some really cool bagpipes that have been in rough shape
Mm.
that I've been able to bring back, and that I'd never been able to afford if they were in great shape, you know.
Yeah.
So I've got to play a lot of different bagpipes. I have a set of old Hendersons from best guess is about 1860.
Whoa.
That they're cocos wood. They're an old cocos wood set, probably made by Henderson himself.
Wow,
But
that's amazing.
but yeah, they're great. They're every single bagpipe has a great personality, and I wouldn't have a problem playing any of the ones that I've had over the years because I just work on them until I feel like they're doing what I want them to do, and
Yeah.
then and some of them I've more aggressively modified than others over the years, but
How many sets of pipes do you have, like, in various states of repair, just sort of in possession at present? I'm just curious.
well, the last few years have been kind of crazy for me, so I've sold off most of my pipes.
Yeah.
So um,
Do you know what the count was at the peak? How many you've had at any one time?
I want to say somewhere around 12 sets.
You had a whole band, man.
Well, a lot of them I got because I had students that couldn't afford pipes, and so I
Yeah.
would get them and restore them and bring them back to life, and then they were lent out to students.
Yeah.
So I hardly ever had that many. Well, I don't know if I ever had that many set of bagpipes here at the house, but I owned that many anyway.
Yeah. And
So
they were just in various other houses being played by other people.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I hated to see anybody that wanted to play that was denied that opportunity because they couldn't afford a set of bagpipes. So
Yeah.
I tried to help where I could.
Yeah, and honestly, like I don't, of course, I'm not speaking for him or anything, but it's something that it was always so important to Zach as well, and I suspect that he was influenced, having learned from you and spent so many years playing with you, in that same way that, like, if someone wants to play, then how can I remove the barriers to make it so they can play?
Yeah, that's always been my mission statement, I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and that's who knows, in whatever small humble ways. I think there are a lot of us who miss Zach a lot, who are trying to find ways to do precisely that. It seems like the best way to memorialize him at all
Mm-hmm.
is to kind of continue that kind of idea, remove barriers, make it so more people can have access to piping and drumming.
Well, hey, the more the merrier.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of drumming, now I've talked. There are a few people in our band that you and I both know, and people who I've talked to in other bands as well after they've heard about this, that have been experiencing sort of like nerve problems and stuff, dystonia and stuff, that make it hard to play the instrument that they love after having played it for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And do I remember right that you have something? Did you have carpal tunnel or arthritis or something? I remember you taking us through like some stretches that would help sort of prevent problems that you yourself had experienced. I think at least that was the explanation.
Yeah, really struggled with carpal tunnel. At one time, I was really pushing myself and did a lot of soloing, and I was practicing 8 hours a day,
Mm.
and I started to lose feeling in my fingers and cramping in my hands. And young and stupid into my 20s, I felt like I was indestructible, so I kept
Mm. So you powered
kept
through.
pushing. So I believe I have some nerve damage in my hands, and
Mm.
um, I struggle with carpal tunnel still.
Mm.
It'll it's quite interesting. It's like you're playing and then a finger will hesitate. Like it doesn't. The brain sends the message for it to move.
And it doesn't do it.
It doesn't quite do it. But
Mm.
so I try and the people I work with help them avoid that. But
Yeah.
I've learned a lot of things now that if I'd known then, it would have been a different story. But so I try and pass those on to other people so that they don't have the same
Yeah.
limitations. So.
Yeah, that was
But
the other part of those warm-ups you'd have me do in the chanter class, was to take the whole class through some of these stretches, kind
yeah,
of
they're
prepare.
very important. If keep doing them.
Yeah, I still do. That's for sure.
Good, good. But yeah, so but stuff happens to everybody. You just learn
Yeah.
to work around it.
Have you ever either motivated by maybe the experience of having carpal tunnel that affects your piping, or otherwise, have you ever picked up tenor mallets, bass mallets, snare sticks? You ever play competitively or otherwise on any of the drums?
Yeah, I studied snare for a while when I was new, and I used to talk with Zach about it. I think that kind of got him excited about the idea, and
Mm.
um, I know he pursued that for a while too.
Yeah, he became quite a snare player. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He's very talented.
Yeah.
And I've tried different things, but most everything just aggravated it more. So
Mm.
I had to decide where I wanted to focus my efforts, I guess. So
Yeah.
they have the surgery and stuff now that you can do. I've talked to a lot of people that have had it, and some people it's I guess they've had the surgery for a long time, but some people it's really kind of eliminates the problem, and other people it tends to come back. So
I see.
it's kind of sixes, it seems like. So
Mm.
if I do the physical therapy, I do okay. So
Yeah. Yeah. What does piping look like for you these days? Are you doing some, like, we're right in this COVID stuff, so when competitions exist again, are you building up white peaks to go compete? Are you looking at soloing stuff, or is it more kind of casual, kind of play for yourself kind of stuff, gigs? You said you still do instruction.
I do. Yeah, I was at a point where I was looking to exit bagpipes completely.
Yeah.
Um, but I had some students that really wanted to continue, and I didn't want to leave them high and dry, and other students that wanted lessons, so they kind of kept me going.
Yeah.
I'm still figuring out, with the whole COVID and everything. I think a lot of people are figuring out what the new normal is going to be.
Yeah.
So,
I,
in
I
some ways, I'm still sorting that out.
yeah, and probably even aside from COVID, I'm not personally like equipped to speak intelligently or well to like mental health, but I know, like personally, it seems like when I go through some cycles of depression and stuff, maybe it's just because bagpipes are kind of a main focus, like something that takes a lot of time, but also kind of a passion for me, something that brings me joy and stuff. It seems like it's always bagpipes that in my mind go to the chopping block, when I go through
Uh-huh.
these negative cycles, and so maybe if it was something else, it would be that thing instead, but it's
Uh-huh.
like, I'm still, I don't think I in any way have it sorted out, but it feels like when I go through these cycles of sort of, what would you call it, like when I'm less healthy mentally or emotionally, um, it's like bagpiping is the thing that I'm like, well, I'm just gonna sell my pipes. I don't need them anymore. Like why? I'm never gonna do that again. And then somehow, it always ends up being an integral part, like kind of a tool that helps me to get out of those cycles as well. Does that resonate at all? Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I always find playing my bagpipes is very cathartic.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Hmm.
For me, it's, there's a lot of things, just weighing how much of a priority it's going to be in my life in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, things change, and priorities change.
Hmm.
So, and with COVID, everything's kind of surreal right now, so it's hard to say,
True enough. Yeah.
what it's going to be like. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of having to shut a lot of things down does kind of put everybody, I think, into sort of a mindset of like, well, now let's take a minute and think. What do I want to prioritize?
yeah, and I think they find other things too that
Hmm.
they get interested in that may um, take up some of their time and interest too.
Yeah.
So,
And unfortunately, there is a limited number of hours in the day.
very
Uh,
true. Yep.
I often
This
lament
year,
that we don't have more.
teaching with COVID, we're basically working two jobs. We're running a
Oh man.
in-person instruction. It's been
Yeah.
different all over the state, but my district we've had in-person all year. Plus, we're running online instruction concurrently for a lot of the people that are at home. So
So it is
that's
two
that's
full jobs.
yeah. So it's taken a lot of time
Mm.
just to keep that up and going. So
Yeah.
after this year is over, things will be different.
Yeah. See what space opens up and see what fills that space, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Do you have so another way that you've kind of left your fingerprints on my piping experience is exposure to bagpiping music. No offense to the Wicked Tinkers, of course. I love the Wicked Tinkers. Aaron Shaw's an amazing piper. The group has always been excellent. Of course, I'll always feel like the original iteration of the Tinkers is the best iteration, but the current iteration is also excellent. But I'm sure you remember that Zach and I were like very enthusiastic little tinkerheads when we were kids.
Mm.
And you expressly, I remember you saying directly, "Hey, the Tinkers are great, but there is more out there." And then you handed me a CD, and it had
Mm.
just like this wonderful mix of like, some of the big bands, SFU and stuff like that. Also a band that I only recently found out what band it was. It's a band called Brother. They had this album called Black
Mm-hmm.
Rock Skank or something like that.
Yeah, where they did bagpiping rap. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so you gave me the CD, and that honestly, that CD is like it was a source of inspiration and still is for me to this day. So I'm just curious, like, what are some favorites for you? Some groups or some individuals that have maybe remained evergreen or simply have been very influential to listen to.
For me, I'd say I'm always pushing the envelope, and my interests are expanding. I don't know if you've seen anything on the Utah Bagpiper page that I posted off and on, but I posted things on there about like Hindu
Mm-hmm.
singing with Pibrook, and some of the Mongolian mouth music with the
Mm.
Germanic bagpipes and things. So um, I have a lot of different interests that change as I learn new things. I've definitely gained an appreciation for a broader um, swath of bagpiping than I had when I was younger.
Mm.
And one benefit of age, I guess, is you get to see the the longer picture and how things maybe fit together a little bit better. And
Mm.
it's interesting to see how the different um, cultures are integrating, and how the different bagpipes are integrating, and the possibilities and the things that are out there. So
Mm.
um, I'd say that's always changing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was thanks to you posting on there a video of some pipers, maybe out of Hungary, maybe somewhere Eastern Europe, maybe like Estonia area,
Mm-hmm.
where these pipers like running through the snow wearing some crazy outfits, and they kidnap a bunch of girls in this little village, and they all go rolling around in the snow, including with their bagpipes and stuff. Do you remember that video? I'm pretty sure it was thanks to you that I got into that like rabbit hole of of bagpiping on YouTube. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff out there.
Yeah.
A lot of new stuff happening all the time.
Now, would you have any advice to a person if, say you come across a person, be they young or old, and they're like, I like piping and drumming. I'm interested in this world. they're dipping a toe. They're kind of getting started. And say you only had one chance to say something to them. What do you think you might say?
Do what you need to get good instruction,
Mm.
because um, it makes all the difference in the long term. If you want to be good enough, instruction doesn't matter so much. But if you want to be continuously progressing, you need a good foundation,
Mm.
and there's just no getting around that. If you can get a good foundation, then anything's possible from there.
Yeah. And what about tunes that you've played? Are there any tunes that you have played that have been just a favorite for years and years and years that you love playing? I mean.
Um, that's a good question. I
Well,
have to
and I'll
think
tell you
about
what
that.
I'll tell you what motivated it if it helps to give you a minute to think about it is that I have this I don't know if it's an accurate memory, but I have this idea in my head that you really loved 40-second Highlanders. And maybe that's not true, but it felt like when I was a teenager, like whenever we would play, when I played individually with White Peaks, but also if the high school ever played with White Peaks for something, um, we would definitely play 40 seconds at some point.
Yeah, it's a tune I've played from the beginning. I guess it's a good tune.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I like it
Not
too. Yeah.
not as widely played as you'd think of outside of Utah. I mean, in Utah we've heard a lot, but you get outside of Utah and a lot of people aren't familiar with it. But
I can't play Scotland the Brave without attaching it to the end at all.
yeah,
They,
yeah,
they go together in my mind for sure.
yeah,
That's probably your fault.
probably, yeah, because we did that a lot. But yeah, they're good tunes. There's a lot of tunes that I like that I played over the years that kind of have a special place. But I'm always, that's evolving and changing too. I
Yeah.
really Some of the hymns that we played at the Nauvoo Pipe Band really have a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
They were originally, Celtic songs, a lot of them, back a long time ago, and they just sit on the pipes really well, and they have kind of a special feeling about them. I really enjoy those. I like a good 2/4 march. It's hard to find a really good one, but when you can find a good one there,
Yeah.
I enjoy them. There's a lot of fun stuff too, hornpipes and reels and jigs, and whatnot. But yeah.
Hmm. And are there any tunes that are still kind of top of your maybe someday list that you'd really love to learn?
Hmm. Um, there's some good P brooks that
Mm,
are on my back burner. That if I get in back into that, then definitely something I'll pursue.
yeah.
But I'm always looking for new ones. You have favorite ones for a long time. You play them for a long time, and they need a break for a while.
Yep.
look
So
for
true.
look for something new.
Yeah. Speaking of pumpkins fancy, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, when I was coming up, it was Clumsy Lover. Everybody was playing
Oh
Clumsy
yeah.
Lover.
Yeah.
That's what everyone wanted to learn how to play.
That makes so much sense because I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if it would have happened otherwise, but maybe it's because of your instruction that like Clumsy Lover was a hot one for Sean and maybe Swan as well. I remember some of your pupils, sort of like people who I at least saw as being like Don taught this person, now this person's teaching me. Like Clumsy
Hmm.
Lover was a pretty common tune throughout those folks.
Yeah, it was really popular. It was. You have to understand, Clumsy Lover was really uh, marked a big change in the piping culture.
Hmm.
In the '60s and '70s, it was so military type. Um, that was the focus, and into the early '80s, and Neil Dickey came out with a lot of edgy stuff like Clumsy Lover and a lot of the things that he had. I don't know if you ever had a chance to visit with Neil Dickey, but he's quite a character.
No, I never
He's
have, but I'd
he's
imagine
a,
you would be.
yeah, he's a pleasure to visit with. He's a real good guy. But
Yeah.
it really kind of moved piping, into other areas to see new possibilities. In that time, the piping that had existed in Cape Breton was starting to open up and become more popular, which was a different type of piping that was not the military style.
Yeah.
They called it kitchen piping and a lot of different things originally. It's pretty mainstream now, but
Right now you got your Ross Millers and your oh who's that guy who'd played with Gordon Duncan, Ainsley, and of course Lincoln Hilton, folks like that. Like you definitely
yep,
can see like that sort of heritage in the way that they're playing. Yeah.
yep. But back then, as we were changing from the real military focus into the other stuff, it was quite an exciting time. And I think piping in a lot of ways we're much more in touch with what the piping culture was before it became so militarized
Mm.
than it was during that time. You guys definitely have a different piping world than the one I came up in.
Mm.
Things have changed a lot.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. What do you think? How would you like to bring this to a graceful landing, Don? Do you have any like anything that you'd like to say? Because like a lot of the people who are going to listen to this know you. They're people who've played with you before, that you've taught before. We can end with something sort of lighthearted. I often ask people how they feel about pineapple on pizza, and I can cut this little bit out, and then just kind of fade into drones. What do you think
Hmm.
would be a? Do you have any sort of preference at all for how we kind of wrap stuff up?
I would just say enjoy it. Don't get caught up in the competition of it or the maybe personality conflicts that may happen in any competitive endeavor, and remember why you're playing bagpipes and enjoy it. Enjoy the music, enjoy the culture, and don't lose sight of having fun.
Beautiful. That will be a beautiful way to close it. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me, Don. I don't know how best to express myself. I cannot help but see, like I say, your fingerprints all over everything for me. The people who you taught, who then taught me, the teaching that you did directly to me, the setting up of the instrument itself, the influence of what music I listened to when I first got started, and of course that echoes into what music I'm listening to now, and maybe even more importantly, the people who I've been around with for these now almost 2 decades in this piping world, they themselves might not have been there if you hadn't been there to run a program or to teach a lesson or to set up an instrument. And so those friendships also have this tie back. And so and not to congratulate myself in any way, but just then recognizing that I've taught a lot of students in private instruction as well as in the group lessons that the pipe band puts on, and now there's this band, and I can't quite grasp it. I can't quite see it, but there is this interconnected web that means a lot to me, and you're an important part of it, and so I'm grateful to you. And now I'm teaching my kids how to play pipes. It's just like, how far does this go? It goes on forever. And
Yeah.
it's kind of a beautiful thing, is all.
Well, one thing that I heard once was that really, I guess, I try to do is there's a saying that says when you teach somebody something that it took you years to learn, you enable them to leapfrog over all those years
Mm,
and be able to push it farther. You know what I'm saying?
that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's what I've tried to do. Pass on what I've learned, and hopefully it continues. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you a million times. And
Oh, you're very welcome.
like, do of course do what's best for